Please comment where you are watching in the world. I didn't notice it at first. You never do with things like this. It starts small, barely there, just a flicker of coincidence that you brush off. Then another, and another, until suddenly, you're standing in the middle of your own life wondering how much of it someone else has been watching. Her name was Olivia, and she was the kind of woman who made you feel like you were already behind. Like she'd already done the therapy, read the books, figured herself out. And you were just trying to keep up. I met her at an outdoor climbing gym in Fremont. She asked if I needed a belay partner, which I did. And after that day, I found myself adjusting my schedule to align with hers. She was magnetic in that subtle, low-frequency way. No drama, no chaos, just a calm confidence that made you want to impress her. She was a teacher, middle school STEM. Smart, sarcastic, always in yoga pants and oversized hoodies, like she didn't know she was beautiful. Or maybe she knew and just didn't care. We started dating casually, then more seriously. Then she was sleeping over 3 nights a week. Then she had a drawer in my dresser. Then she stopped leaving. I liked it, mostly. She was always thoughtful, dropping off homemade granola bars at my office, texting me sweet little check-ins, remembering every detail I ever told her. I chalked it up to her being a good listener. I didn't see it as a red flag. Not yet. One night, maybe 4 months into our relationship, she surprised me with a new smartwatch. One of those sleek, matte black ones that sync with your phone. I'd mentioned wanting to get back into running, and she said this would motivate me. It tracks everything, she said, excited. Heart rate, sleep, GPS, even hydration levels if you wear it long enough. GPS? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, for your runs, she said, so you can see your route and pace. I didn't think twice about it. I wore it, synced it, forgot about it. That's when the coincidences started. She began showing up at places I hadn't told her I was going. I'd grab a beer with coworkers and she'd text, "How's Fremont brewing tonight?" Or I'd take a spontaneous late-night walk and she'd say, "Bit chilly out for 11 p.m., huh?" I joked that she was psychic. She laughed it off. Lucky guesses. But they weren't. It reached a point where she showed up at my gym on a Saturday morning, saying, "Thought I'd surprise you with smoothies." I hadn't posted anything. Hadn't told her where I was going. My stomach twisted a little, but I smiled and said thanks. Later that night, I asked her, "How'd you know I was there?" She didn't miss a beat. "I figured you'd go. You usually do on Saturdays." The next day, I went for a run without telling anyone. No phone, just headphones. When I got home, she was sitting on my porch with Gatorade. "You ran a little slower than usual," she said, grinning. That's when it clicked. The watch. She was tracking me. I didn't want to believe it at first. I told myself maybe she was looking at my stats afterward. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe I was being paranoid. But something in her tone that day, so casual, so confident, made me start digging. I opened the health app on my phone. There it was, my entire route, speed, heart rate, split times. Synced automatically. I checked the sharing settings. I hadn't turned on location sharing with her. But somehow it was enabled. And she was on the list. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my throat tighten. When I confronted her that night, I kept it calm. "Hey," I said, trying to sound curious. "Did you sync my watch to your phone?" She looked up from her laptop. "What?" "My watch. You've been tracking my runs?" She blinked. "I mean, not tracking. I just have access to the data. You synced it when I set it up, remember?" "No," I said. "I didn't." She shrugged. "I thought it would be helpful. You mentioned wanting accountability." "I didn't mean surveillance." Her expression hardened. "It's not surveillance, it's support." "Jesus, why are you making it sound creepy?" "Because it is," I said. "You've been showing up to places I didn't tell you about. That's not support, Liv. That's control." She stood up, pacing. "Wow. Okay. So I buy you something to help you stay healthy, and now I'm the bad guy. I didn't ask to be tracked. You didn't say you minded. I didn't know." She scoffed. "God, this is insane. You know what? I don't even care about your stupid data. Keep your precious privacy." She stormed out. I sat there in silence. The watch still buzzing on my wrist, mocking me. That night, I removed her from every shared app, changed my health data settings, and turned off location access. It felt like reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I'd lost. But it wasn't over. She texted me the next day like nothing had happened. "Morning, babe. Hope you slept okay. Want to grab lunch later?" I didn't respond. She called. I ignored it. Then she started showing up again. At my gym. At my favorite sandwich spot. Even at the trailhead where I hiked on weekends. She always acted surprised. "Oh hey, didn't know you'd be here too." The same woman who used to claim she respected boundaries now seemed incapable of recognizing them. I told her clearly and directly, "I need space. Please stop showing up." She nodded, apologized, said she got it. Then 2 days later, she left a smoothie at my door. I knew it was her. The same brand, same note. Thought you could use a boost. I felt like I was being hunted by kindness. Eventually, I had to block her. Phone, Instagram, email. I even changed my gym schedule. I stopped going to my favorite bar. I deleted the fitness app entirely. The smartwatch went into a drawer, face down, screen dark. I thought that would be the end of it. Then she messaged my sister. They'd met once. At a birthday dinner. Barely spoke. But now Olivia was DMing her, asking if I was okay, if I was spiraling. If maybe I'd had a breakdown. My sister called me, concerned. "What's going on with you too?" I told her everything. "Jesus," she said. "She's not just clingy. She's obsessed." That was the word I'd been avoiding. Obsessed. It didn't feel like obsession at first. It felt like attention. Like care. Like someone actually giving a shit. But it had turned into something else. Something that made me feel like I was constantly being watched, even when I wasn't. I filed a police report. Not because I thought it would do much, but because I wanted it documented. I wanted some kind of paper trail. It was the ugliest breakup I've ever had. And we never even officially broke up. She just faded after that. No more texts. No more drop-ins. I think the report scared her. Or maybe she finally realized I wasn't playing along anymore. It's been almost a year. I haven't dated since. Not really. I've hooked up a few times, gone on a couple awkward coffee dates. But nothing serious. Because now, I flinch when someone wants to check in. I hesitate when someone asks to share locations just for safety. I second-guess every gift, every compliment, every small act of thoughtfulness. What Olivia did wasn't violent. It wasn't overt. It didn't leave bruises. But it chipped away at my autonomy so slowly that I didn't notice until I was half a stranger in my own routine. People talk about boundaries like they're obvious. But they aren't. Especially when someone blurs them with affection. She never yelled. Never threatened. Never raised a hand. She just watched. I thought I was done with Ben. We broke up 8 months ago. It was messy, sure, but not police messy. No slashed tires. No public screaming. Just a slow unraveling that started with too many little lies and ended with me packing my things while he sat on the couch, scrolling through Reddit and pretending I wasn't leaving. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He just watched me go with this hollow look in his eyes, like he was filing the moment away for later. I blocked him on everything: Instagram, phone, Venmo, Spotify. I even changed my Netflix password because I was tired of seeing "continue watching" Mindhunter pop up on my feed. I thought that was it. I thought he'd fade into the background like most exes do. I was wrong. It started with a new match. His name was Cameron. His profile was one of those carefully casual setups: 2 outdoor selfies, 1 moody black and white shot, and a group pic at a rooftop bar. He listed himself as a photographer and had a short, confident bio, looking for something real. Let's skip the small talk. I didn't recognize him. Not at first. But he was good. Whoever Cameron really was, he knew how to say all the right things. He messaged me first with a comment about the book I'd mentioned in my profile. Then a follow-up about a music venue I'd posted in my photos. We talked for 3 days straight. He was funny, a little flirty, self-deprecating in the way that makes you feel like you're winning something by liking him. Looking back, I realize how coordinated it all was. He didn't just know what to say, he knew when to say it. He was shaping the conversation to hit my soft spots. And I was falling for it. We planned to meet for dinner on a Thursday night. He suggested a restaurant in the Pearl District, one I hadn't been to but had bookmarked a while ago. I didn't think anything of it. I wore jeans, boots, and a fitted sweater, pulled my hair back, and told my friend Rachel where I was going. "Send me a pic when you get there," she said. "And do the fake phone call thing if it's weird." I laughed. "I'll be fine." I should have listened to that little flicker of unease. The one I always ignore until it's too late. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw him right away. He was already seated. Candlelight flickered across his face, and for a moment, I felt this weird sense of déjà vu. Then he stood up, and my stomach dropped. It was Ben. He was thinner than I remembered, hair a little longer, but it was him. No question. I froze. He smiled like nothing was wrong. Like this was normal. "Hey," he said, stepping forward to hug me. I backed away. "What the fuck is this?" "Please," he said, hands up. "Just sit. I just wanted to talk." I looked around. No one else seemed to notice anything. To them, we were just another couple out for dinner. "I'm leaving," I said. "Please, just 5 minutes. I swear, I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk. You don't even have to stay for dinner." I hesitated. Every cell in my body was telling me to run. But I also knew him. I knew if I left without hearing him out, he might try something worse. So I sat. Not because I trusted him, but because I needed to control the situation. He sat down too, folding his hands neatly on the table like we were at a job interview. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know this is insane. I didn't know how else to see you. You catfished me. I didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at him. "What did you mean to do, Ben?" He looked down at his water glass. "I've been going to therapy. I've been working on myself. I know I messed up, but I still care about you. I thought if you saw that I'd changed, maybe. You thought pretending to be someone else would win me back." He didn't respond. "That's not therapy, Ben. That's stalking." He looked up, his face twitching in frustration. "I just wanted one more conversation. You never gave me that. You just walked away. Because you lied. You cheated. You gaslit me. You made me feel like I was crazy for asking basic questions. I owed you nothing." His jaw clenched. "You always do this." I stood up. "We're done." He grabbed my wrist. Not hard. Just enough to stop me. "Let go," I said. He did. Slowly. The waitress came over then, smiling. "Can I start you both with something to drink?" I looked at her, eyes wide. "Actually, I don't feel safe. Can you help me get out of here?" Her smile dropped instantly. "Of course. Come with me." She didn't ask questions, just nodded to another server and led me toward the kitchen. Ben stood up behind me. "Wait." The waitress turned. "Sir, please stay seated." I didn't look back. We cut through the kitchen, hot, loud, full of clattering plates and confused cooks, and exited through a service door that led to the alley. She handed me her phone. "Do you need to call someone? Want me to call the police?" My hands were shaking. "I think I need a ride. Can you stay with me until it gets here?" "Absolutely." We waited in silence. My Uber pulled up 5 minutes later. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver a tight nod. The waitress watched until we drove away. I didn't cry until I got home. Then I locked all the doors, crawled into bed fully dressed, and shook for what felt like hours. He'd known exactly what he was doing. He'd used a fake profile, a fake name, even a fake job. He'd mirrored all the things I was attracted to. He'd picked a public place so I wouldn't run. He'd planned it. He wanted to scare me, to control me, maybe even worse. I changed my number the next day, deleted the dating apps, reported the fake profile, told Rachel everything. "I swear to God," she said, "if I ever see him again." I nodded. Same. 3 weeks later, I found out he'd tried to contact 2 of my friends. Said he was worried about me, that I was acting unstable. That's when I filed the restraining order. He didn't show up to the hearing, but the judge granted it anyway. I keep a copy of it in my bag. Not because I think it'll stop him if he really wants to do something, but because I want proof. I want a paper trail. I want to be believed if anything ever happens again. Dating isn't fun anymore. It's strategy. It's background checks and sharing your location and memorizing exits. It's wondering if the guy who seems perfect is just wearing someone else's face. I've started trusting my instincts more. That flicker of unease? I listen to it now. I don't give people the benefit of the doubt when they haven't earned it. I don't stay to be polite. And I always look for the back exit. I'd always been careful on dating apps. Not paranoid, just thoughtful. I work as a freelance UX designer, so I spend most days in my apartment, toggling between Figma files and podcasts about stories I'll never live. After a while, the silence starts to hum. That quiet ache of wanting a real conversation, a shared glance, someone to ask if you've eaten. It was Maya, my best friend and roommate, who finally convinced me to try again. "Just 1 week," she said, tossing a pillow at me while we watched reruns of some show neither of us really liked. "You're a grown woman. You can survive 7 days on Hinge." So I downloaded it, made a profile that didn't try too hard, and braced myself for the usual: gym bros, travel addicts, and bios riddled with red flags. Then I matched with Eli. We met for drinks at a bar downtown. He looked just like his photos, clean cut, a little overdressed for the venue, but not in a bad way. The conversation flowed. He was funny, attentive, asked questions without making it feel like an interview. I liked that he didn't check his phone once. Toward the end of the night, he leaned in a little too close and asked if I wanted to come over for a nightcap. I smiled. Rain check. He gave me this look, half smile, half smirk. You're different. Most people don't say no to me. That stuck with me. Not in a huge way, just a gentle nudge in the back of my mind. I said goodnight, got in my Uber, and texted Maya. Good convo. Not sure I'll see him again. Something felt off. The next morning, I unmatched him. No drama. Just a quiet exit. A week later, I was back on the apps, not expecting much. Swipe, swipe, pause. A new profile popped up, Daniel R. A few well-composed photos. One in a bookstore, another with a dog, and wait, a third in a kayak. I stared. The dog had the same white spot over its left eye. The kayak photo had a different shirt, but the same angle, same smirk. I tilted the screen and blinked. No way. Everything okay? Maya asked from the doorway, holding a mug of tea. I handed her my phone. Tell me I'm not losing it. She squinted. Is that Eli? I think so. New name, new pictures. But same dog. Same kayak. Same bar in the background. She frowned. That's weird. Like calculated weird. I'm matching with him, I said. Maya raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? I just want to see what he says. The match popped up immediately. I messaged, hey, cute dog. He replied within minutes. Thanks. He's a rescue. Kind of a goofball. You into dogs? Over the next few days, we talked. Again, he mirrored the same tone, same jokes, even mentioned the same authors when I asked what he was reading. He said his favorite whiskey was Highland Park 12. That was the exact brand Eli had bragged about on our date. I played along, casually re-asking things he'd already told me the first time. He didn't seem to notice. Then he suggested we meet up. There's this bar on 6th near the bookstore. Really chill vibe. You'd like it. That was the exact bar we'd gone to before. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I showed Maya the messages. He thinks you forgot, she said. Or he thinks you'll just ignore it. I nodded. I want to call him out, but I want to do it in person. So I agreed to the date. Same bar. Same time. Same outfit I wore the first time. Maya came with me, posted up at the opposite end of the bar with her laptop, pretending to work. She's the kind of friend who doesn't ask why you need her there. She just shows up. He was already seated when I arrived, sipping a beer. He stood when he saw me. Nina, right? I tilted my head. Have we met before? He grinned. Nope. First time. I sat down. Weird. You look familiar. Maybe I just have one of those faces. I smiled, but inside something hardened. Or maybe you're Eli. We matched last month. Went on a date. Same bar. Same dog. Same kayak. His smile twitched. What? You made a new profile. Changed your name. But not your dog. Not the bar. Not your whiskey. He blinked, then leaned back in his chair. Okay. Sure. You caught me. But we had a good time. I thought maybe you'd give me another shot. You lied, I said. You didn't think I'd give you another shot, so you tried to trick me into one. I didn't lie, he said. I just made a new profile. You unmatched me. I figured you weren't sure. You figured wrong. He shrugged. This is exactly why dating sucks. You unmatch someone without a reason. So yeah, I changed the name. Big deal. You could have just messaged and said, hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot. You didn't. You went out of your way to deceive me. That's not charming. That's manipulative. He didn't say anything. Just stared at me, mouth tight, eyes flat. I stood up. We're done here. Outside, the air felt sharp and cleansing. I walked straight to Maya, who'd seen everything. You good? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm reporting him. I emailed the app support team that night with screenshots and a full description. His account was gone by the next morning. I didn't open the app again after that. I didn't delete it either. Just let it sit in the background, like an unread book I wasn't ready to throw out. That weekend, I started a note on my phone. If I ever swipe again. A list of things I'd watch for. Voices I'd trust. Gut feelings I wouldn't ignore. I don't think I regret meeting Eli. I regret giving him attention twice. But I'm proud I didn't give him a third chance. Because the moment someone pretends to be someone else to win you over, that's not romance. That's rehearsal. And I'm not interested in starring in someone's performance. I matched with Micah on a Thursday, and by Friday night, we were already making plans. That's how it is sometimes. With certain people, the conversation just feels easy. He was charming, a little cocky, but in a way that made me laugh instead of gag. His photos were a mix of laid back and curated. One on a rooftop bar, one with a motorcycle, one shirtless in a mirror that he probably thought looked casual, but was definitely rehearsed. Still, I wasn't mad about it. We texted all through the day, dropping into that slightly flirty space that lives between innuendo and suggestion. He asked if I was more of a Netflix and wine, or tequila and dancing kind of girl. I told him maybe both, depending on who was pouring. He replied with a wink emoji and a playlist link. Bold. But I liked bold, within reason. We decided to grab drinks at a little dive bar in Echo Park. One of those places with sticky tabletops and twinkly lights strung across the patio. I took my time getting ready, hair curled, eyeliner winged just right. I wore jeans and a black crop top that showed just enough to say, "Hey, I'm trying," without screaming, "Pick me." He was already at the bar when I walked in. Taller than I expected, with a smirk that said he was used to women noticing him. But he didn't overdo it. He stood when I approached, pulled me in for a hug, warm, cologne heavy, just long enough to count. We got drinks, grabbed a booth, and talked. He was a decent conversationalist, though he leaned a little too hard into the "I just got out of something serious" narrative. I nodded through it, sipping mezcal and trying to steer the convo back to lighter things. By the second round, his hand was on my knee. I didn't mind. I'm not made of glass. And honestly, I hadn't had a real date in months. It felt good to be touched, to flirt, to feel like someone wanted me. But then he started getting pushy. "I live 10 minutes from here," he said, voice low. "Got a bottle of wine and a killer view." I laughed. "That sounds like the start of a Dateline episode." He grinned. "Only if you ghost me after." I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I said I'd think about it after one more drink. He ordered shots. I declined. Something about his energy had started to shift. The charm turned into something more calculated. He started making comments about my outfit, how it was asking for trouble. He said it like a joke, but his eyes didn't smile with the rest of his face. I told him I was calling it a night. He pouted, then offered to order me a ride. "I'm good," I said. "Already have my own rideshare app." He didn't argue, which surprised me. He just nodded and walked me out to the curb. We hugged again, less warm this time, and I slid into the car that pulled up 2 minutes later. The driver was quiet. Middle-aged, baseball cap. Not much small talk, which I appreciated. I was tired and tipsy and ready to be home. About halfway through the ride, I noticed we weren't taking the usual route. I opened the app. It still listed my address as the destination, but the pin was moving along a weird back street I didn't recognize. "Hey," I said gently. "Is this the fastest way?" The driver didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Just avoiding traffic." It was 11:15 p.m. There was no traffic. My stomach tightened. I glanced at his rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at me, just driving, both hands on the wheel. Calm. Too calm. I texted Maya. "If I don't text in 10, call me. Something's off." She replied instantly. "Okay. You all right?" Before I could type back, the car made a sharp turn onto a narrow street. Industrial, dimly lit. Empty. My fingers hovered over the emergency button in the app. Then the driver spoke again. "So Micah said you looked even better in person." My blood went cold. "What?" He didn't respond. Just kept driving. I tapped the emergency button. It buzzed and sent an alert. I didn't know what else to do. My voice caught in my throat. "Stop the car," I said louder this time. He looked at me in the mirror. "Relax. I'm just taking you where he told me to." "Stop. The car." He didn't. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached for the door handle. The car slowed at a red light, and I yanked the door open and bolted. I ran. Fast. No looking back. My shoes slapped against the pavement. I ducked behind a dumpster, breath ragged, and called Maya. She answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" I gave her the cross streets. She was already in her car. The driver didn't follow me. I don't know if he drove off because I triggered the alert or because he didn't want to risk attention. Either way, he was gone by the time Maya pulled up. I climbed into her car shaking. We drove straight to the LAPD station. I filed a report. Gave them the rideshare info, the license plate, the driver's face, everything. They took it seriously. They said the account had been created that same day. The name on the app didn't match the plate. It was a spoofed driver account. Micah had arranged it. I blocked him, reported his profile, reported everything. Hinge emailed me 2 days later to say the account was removed. They thanked me for my report. That was it. I haven't been on a date since. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone back to his place. If I'd had that last drink. If I'd let him order that ride without checking the plate. I still go out. Still flirt. Still wear the crop top when I feel like it. But I don't take rides from strangers anymore. I don't let men order my rides. And I always share my location. Dating isn't just awkward now. It's wariness. It's quiet calculation. It's asking yourself, if I say no, will I be punished for it? I met Adam through Hinge, which was starting to feel more like a job than a pastime. Swipe fatigue is real, and I was deep in it. But his profile was different. Not in a try-hard, I read Murakami and climb mountains kind of way, just honest. He had soft eyes, a messy smile, and a photo in front of this mural I recognized from Logan Square. We had a few mutual Instagram followers, which gave me a weird sense of comfort. Like, okay, he's real. He exists in the same city as me. He probably eats brunch too. We matched on a Tuesday. By Thursday, we were texting late into the night. He was easy to talk to. Too easy, maybe. He brought up a little indie bookstore I loved, Voltaire's, before I even mentioned it. Said he liked their poetry section. That made me pause. It's not a secret place, but it's not exactly mainstream either. You been before? I asked. Yeah, once or twice. Came across it through a friend, he said. I let it go. We met for drinks at a wine bar near my apartment. When he walked in, he looked exactly like his photos. A little taller than I expected, a little more confident than I was ready for. He gave me a hug like we already knew each other. And that's how it felt, like he already knew me. He asked questions I didn't remember answering. About my job, my favorite bar, my dog's name, all the stuff people usually have to earn over a few dates. He already had it lined up. I must have stalked your profile harder than I realized, he joked. I laughed, because what else do you do? But something about it put me on edge. The date went well. He was attentive, funny, a little flirtatious without pushing it. We kissed in front of the train station, and I went home thinking, okay, maybe this one's actually normal. But things got weird fast. The next day, he sent me a playlist. It included 3 songs I'd posted on my story weeks ago, and one that I'd only played at home through my smart speaker. I hadn't shared it anywhere. Another day, he joked about a tweet I'd deleted. Something dumb about eating chips for dinner. I'd posted it at 2 a.m. and deleted it by morning. He brought it up like it was an inside joke. How'd you see that? I asked. He replied, I've got good timing, I guess. I started feeling watched. Not in a horror movie way, just tracked. Cataloged. So I brought it up. Do we have mutual friends? I asked him over brunch after our 3rd date. He sipped his coffee. A couple, I think. You went to DePaul, right? Yeah. But how do you know that? He hesitated for half a second. You mentioned it, I think. I hadn't. Later that night, I did a little digging. I searched his name on Facebook. We weren't friends, but we had 5 mutuals. I messaged one of them, Liv, a girl I knew from a writing workshop last year. Hey, random question, I typed. Do you know Adam K? She replied 10 minutes later. Yeah, he dated a friend of mine a while back. Why? Just matched with him, trying to figure out how he knows so much about me. There was a long pause. Then, oh, that guy. Be careful. He's intense. He used to do this thing where he'd ask mutual friends about girls he liked before messaging them. Like, collect info. It creeped my friend out. My stomach dropped. I asked, do you think he did that with me? I mean, probably. If you have mutuals, he definitely used it. I didn't reply. I sat on my bed, scrolling back through our messages. The way he'd known about my dog, my yoga studio, the exact coffee order I'd mentioned once in a comment under someone else's post. He hadn't just picked it up from my profile. He'd been looking. And not just casually browsing. He had been collecting. The next day, I confronted him. I didn't want to meet in person, so I texted. Hey, I need to ask something. Did you ask people about me before we matched? He replied almost immediately. What? No. Why would I do that? I talked to someone. She knows you. Said you've done it before. Another pause. Then, okay, I might have asked around. Just wanted to make sure you weren't some psycho or something. Is that a crime? I stared at the screen for a long time. That's not what you did, I wrote back. You didn't check if I was normal. You used people to collect details. You made me think we had things in common that you engineered. Don't be dramatic, he replied. I blocked him. Later that week, I got a DM from a fake-looking account. No posts, no followers. Just a message. Hope you enjoyed your little investigation. You're not that interesting. Then it blocked me before I could reply. I told Maya everything. She wasn't even surprised. He's not the first guy to do that, she said. Some people think information equals intimacy. She was right, but it still messed with me. It's not that he lied exactly. It's that he built a version of himself that fit perfectly into the version of me he had assembled from scraps. And I fell for it, because who doesn't want to feel understood? Now I keep my stories close and my circle tighter. I scrub my social media when I date someone new. I ask more questions. I trust slower. I don't think Adam was dangerous in the way people usually mean. But he was willing to cross a line quietly. He didn't want to get to know me. He wanted a version of me that he could control. And that's more dangerous than any bad pickup line. His profile said, looking for player 2. Must love dogs, brunch, and catching 'em all. I should have known. I really should have known. His name was Bram. He had dark curly hair, thick glasses, and a bio filled with Pokemon puns. I figured they were just jokes, quirky, maybe ironic. His photos showed him hiking, cooking, and posing with a corgi named Growlithe, which I admit made me smile. We matched on a Wednesday. He messaged me first. Bram, if I were a Pokemon, I'd be a slowpoke, laid back and a little dopey. Me, if I were a Pokemon, I'd be Gardevoir, loyal but psychic, aka I see through bullshit. Bram, oof. Bold first move. I like it. He was clever, I'll give him that. We chatted for a few days. He slipped in a few more references, but nothing over the top. I figured he was just leaning into a theme. Everyone has their thing. I dated a guy who was obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons, and another who could quote every line from The Lord of the Rings. This didn't seem that different. So when Bram asked me out for ramen on Saturday, I said yes. I wore a black turtleneck, dark lipstick, and my hair up in a loose twist. Chic. Minimal. Elegantly detached. I was hoping to look like the kind of woman who could appreciate a little nerdy charm, but wouldn't put up with too much of it. He arrived 5 minutes early, wearing a denim jacket covered in enamel pins. I spotted Pikachu, Mimikyu, and a tiny pokeball near the collar. He also had a Bulbasaur patch stitched to the sleeve. Hey, he said, hugging me. He smelled like cedar and laundry detergent. You look like a ghost-type trainer. That's a compliment. I laughed awkwardly. Thanks. I think. We sat at a corner booth. He ordered tonkatsu with extra egg. I got veggie miso. Everything was normal for the first few minutes. We talked about work. He told me he did freelance design and ran a Twitch stream on the side. Then it began. As the waiter walked away, he leaned in and said, Okay, real question. If you had to pick a starter Pokemon based on your vibe, would you go fire, grass, or water? I blinked. I've never really thought about it. Instinct says water. You're calm but intense. Like a Vaporeon. I smiled politely. That's specific. He grinned. I have a gift. I pegged my ex as a Chikorita. Turns out she was more of a Jengar. I sipped my drink. He kept going. So like if we were on a journey together, he said, I think we'd make a solid team. I'd be your rival, but like the hot one. Not Gary. More like Silver. Brooding but misunderstood. I laughed, trying to play along. I'd probably ditch you by the second gym. You'd never get past Brock without me, he said, dead serious. I raised an eyebrow. He's a rock-type trainer. I'd bring a water type. He stared, eyes wide. You do know your types. I knew you were a hidden trainer. I'm not, I said quickly. I played a little as a kid, that's all. He nodded solemnly. That's how it starts. The ramen arrived. For a few minutes, there was peace. Then he pulled out his phone. He showed me a photo of his bedroom. It was a lot. Bookshelves lined with Pokemon figurines. A framed print of Charizard over the bed. The bed sheets? Pikachu in a repeating pattern. I know it's dorky, he said, but I believe in surrounding yourself with what you love. I smiled tight-lipped. Of course. He kept going. I've been to every region in the games. Even tried to nuzlocke a few. I cried when my Butterfree died. Like actual tears. I nodded slowly. That's dedication. You know, he said, picking up his spoon. This ramen reminds me of that episode where Team Rocket opens a noodle stand in Unova. Ever seen that? No. Classic filler arc Jessie wears a kimono. Meowth burns the broth. Hilarious. I forced a laugh. I was trying. I really was. But then he pulled out something from his jacket pocket. A Pokédex-shaped notebook. I write down potential nicknames for future Pokemon, he said, flipping it open. Like if I ever get a shiny Eevee, I'm naming her Moondrip. Cool, right? I put my chopsticks down. Bram. He looked up mid-sentence. I need to say something. He blinked. Oh, I think you're sweet, and you're clearly passionate. But this is too much. His smile faltered. Too much? Yes. Like, you've made 20 Pokemon references in 45 minutes. I counted. He looked stunned. It's just who I am. I get that, but I'm not looking to date an anime side quest. I need someone who can have a normal conversation without turning it into an episode of Pokemon Journeys. He laughed nervously. I thought you were into it. I was trying to be polite. He leaned back. So you're saying I should hide who I am? No. I'm saying I'm not the right audience. And that's okay. He crossed his arms. Wow. I thought we had chemistry. We might have, if you'd let me speak about literally anything else. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I stood up. Thanks for the ramen, Bram. Good luck with Moondrip. And I walked out. He texted me 3 times that night. Bram, sorry if I overwhelmed you. I just get excited. Bram, you were the first person I felt like I could be myself around. Bram, if you change your mind, the Indigo League awaits. I didn't respond. Because sometimes it's not about being mean. It's about self-preservation. I want to date a person, not a fandom. And no matter how charming someone is, if they can't have a conversation without turning it into a trivia game, they're not your match. They're just trying to catch you. His name was Lucien. Yes, Lucien. Like some medieval knight from a forgotten myth or a vampire lounge singer. I almost didn't swipe on him because of it, but he had kind eyes and his profile was unapologetically nerdy. Quotes from old video games, a photo of him at a comic convention holding a foam sword and the line, "Better at trivia than small talk, but I'll try both." It was kind of charming. Our messages were cute. Light banter, puns, a shared love of cult films. He asked real questions, never pushed for photos, and used full sentences. Not a single WID in sight. He said he worked in post-production for indie films, mostly editing horror shorts and fan projects. That should have been a flag, maybe. But I liked horror too. I thought it was just a shared interest. We met for coffee on a rainy Sunday afternoon. He wore a navy cardigan over a faded graphic tee that said Final Girl Energy. His glasses fogged a little when he walked in. I noticed he smelled like cedar and bergamot, and that he smiled with his whole mouth, not just his teeth. Lucien was awkward in a way that felt intentional. Like he'd practiced being awkward because it made people lower their guard. He fidgeted with his spoon while we talked, but his eyes never left mine. We talked about movies mostly. He had strong opinions about editing styles in slasher films, hated found footage, and called certain remakes criminal acts. I like horror that lingers, he said. Stuff you think about days later. I nodded. The slow burn kind. His eyes sparkled. Exactly. After 2 hours, he asked if I wanted to keep talking somewhere less fluorescent. I live just a few blocks away, he said. We could watch a movie. I won't pick anything scarring, unless you're into that. I hesitated. He added quickly, no pressure. Just tea and projector-level ambience. I said yes. Because he seemed harmless. Because I was bored. Because it was raining and his house was close, and I thought, why not? That's how these stories start, right? His apartment was in a converted Victorian, one of those slightly crooked houses split into units. He lived on the top floor. The stairwell creaked under us, and his door had a sticker on it that said, "Here there be monsters." He unlocked it with a flourish. "Welcome to my lair." I laughed. Inside, the place was dimly lit but clean. A wall of bookshelves lined with Blu-rays and thick film anthologies. A projector hung from the ceiling, aimed at a pull-down screen above a couch draped in a black velvet throw. There were candles, real ones, with wax pooling into ornate holders shaped like skulls and ravens. It was a lot, but still within the realm of harmless film nerd. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll put on something classic." He made tea while I scanned the titles on his shelf. Suspiria, The Thing, Martyrs, The Wailing, House of the Devil, deep cuts, stylish pics, some genuinely disturbing ones. He returned with 2 mismatched mugs and asked, "You mind subtitles?" "Not at all." He queued up a Korean horror film I hadn't seen and dimmed the lights further. The room went a soft amber, just the flicker of the screen and the scent of cinnamon tea. We sat close. Our thighs touched. His hand brushed mine once, then retreated. "Too soon?" he asked, smirking. "Maybe just the right amount of soon," I whispered. We didn't kiss. Not yet. Halfway through the movie, I said I needed the bathroom. "Down the hall," he said. "Left at the end." I walked slowly, trying to get my bearings. The hallway was narrow, walls covered in framed posters, some vintage, some disturbingly graphic. One caught my eye, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre poster, but it had been altered. Lucien's face had been photoshopped over Leatherface's body. I frowned. The bathroom door was closed. I opened another by mistake. It wasn't a closet. It was a room. A small one, lit with a red bulb. The walls were lined with pegboards, like a hardware store display. But instead of tools, it was weapons. Movie weapons. At least, I hoped. There was a machete mounted next to a replica of Freddy Krueger's glove. A chainsaw with red paint, or something darker, smeared across the blade. A collection of kitchen knives on a magnetic strip. A baseball bat with nails driven through it. A replica of the scythe from The Reaping, and what looked like a prop axe from The Shining. Above it all was a sign that read, "Props that deserve respect." My skin prickled. I stepped closer. Some were tagged with little labels. Names. Dates. One said Rehearsal Blade, 2021. Another read, Tested on meat, cleaned. I stopped reading after that. That's when I heard him behind me. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," Lucien said. I jumped. Spun around. He was standing in the hallway, still holding his tea. Sorry," I said quickly. "I thought this was the bathroom." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sure you did. I'll just use the actual bathroom." I brushed past him. He didn't move. The bathroom was tiny, cold, and smelled faintly of bleach. I shut the door. Locked it. Sat on the closed toilet seat, heart racing. None of the weapons looked freshly used. Nothing suggested he'd done anything illegal. But something felt wrong. It wasn't just the collection. It was how curated it was. How reverent. Like a shrine. I glanced around. There were no windows. Just a vent and an old medicine cabinet. I flushed the toilet to make it sound like I'd actually used it. Washed my hands. When I stepped back into the hall, he was gone. The living room was empty. So was the kitchen. I scanned the room, heart hammering. My coat was still by the door. My phone was in my back pocket. I texted Mariah. "At Guy's place. Weird vibe. We'll explain later. Just in case." Then I walked to the door and quietly unlocked it. The knob turned easily. I slipped out, fast and quiet. Down the stairs. Didn't run. Just walked like I belonged there until I was outside. Once I hit the sidewalk, I started moving faster. I didn't look back. I didn't stop walking until I was 2 blocks away, under the flicker of a street lamp. Then I called an Uber. He texted me 5 minutes later. "You forgot your tea." I blocked him. I never reported him. Because technically, he didn't do anything. I didn't want to explain to a cop that I left because a guy had too many fake weapons and a room that smelled like ritual. But I told Mariah everything. I made her promise to never go anywhere alone with someone she hadn't fully vetted. I told her to always pretend she was on her period if a date started feeling weird, and to always keep her phone on her, even in the bathroom. I still think about Lucien sometimes. About how calculated his apartment was. How he offered just enough vulnerability to make me feel like I was the one in control. About how I almost stayed. Because that's the thing, he didn't scare me at first. He made me feel seen. Until I realized he wasn't a horror fan. He was a collector. And I was almost part of his collection. I used to love showing people my apartment. It's not fancy. A cozy 1-bedroom in a pre-war building with creaky floors and radiator heat. But I'd made it mine, warm lighting, thrifted art, a record player in the corner. Every object had a story. The chipped blue mug from a trip to Asheville, the framed photograph I took in Iceland, the stack of books by my bed with notes scribbled in the margins. It was the kind of space where people relaxed. Where first dates turned into sleepovers, and sleepovers turned into breakfasts with mismatched mugs and too much French press. That's what I thought was happening with Julian. We matched on a Thursday. He was charming in that dry, self-aware kind of way. He'd read the same obscure novels I had. Quoted movies I didn't expect anyone else to recognize. We texted for a few days, then met for drinks near my place. He dressed well, nothing flashy, just thoughtful. Leather jacket, clean sneakers, subtle cologne. He asked questions. Listened. He didn't interrupt or check his phone. When I mentioned I was a photographer, his eyes lit up. "I knew it," he said. "You have that quiet observer vibe." I laughed. "That's either a compliment or a red flag." "Both," he said, smirking. After our second drink, we walked back to my place. It was cold out, and I offered him tea. Just tea. No expectations. He stepped inside and looked around like he was stepping into a museum. "This place is very you," he said immediately. I raised an eyebrow. "You just got here." He shrugged. "Still, I can tell. You live with intention." I poured the tea. He wondered. Not in a creepy way, just curious. He lightly touched the spines of my books, picked up a small sculpture on the shelf, complimented my taste in records. He noticed my Polaroid camera on the desk and asked if I still used film. He called my couch deceptively comfortable and sat with his arms stretched along the back like he was already home. We kissed that night. Nothing more. He left around midnight, after a lingering goodbye at the door. The next day he texted, "Thanks for letting me into your world." I haven't felt that relaxed in a long time. I smiled at the message. Maybe I'd finally found someone who wasn't trying to get somewhere. Just someone who could sit still with me in the quiet. We went on 2 more dates. Both good. But something didn't click. It wasn't him exactly. He was attentive, present, but I started noticing little things that made my stomach tighten. He remembered things I didn't tell him. He mentioned a bottle of wine I'd left on the kitchen counter. When I knew I hadn't pointed out, he complimented the scent of my shampoo, even though I hadn't stayed over. He referred to the small safe I kept under my bed, a detail he could have only noticed if he'd looked deliberately. I told myself I was being paranoid, but by the 4th date, I knew I wasn't feeling it. So I told him gently that I didn't see things going further. He paused, then said, "Okay, thanks for being honest." I appreciated that, until the texts started. At first, they were harmless. "Just thinking about your apartment. You have such good taste. Your bed looks so soft. I bet you sleep like a cat." Then they got specific. "You kept your keys in a little dish by the door, right? I love that. The windows in your bedroom faced east. You could watch the sunrise from your pillow." I hadn't shown him my bedroom. He never walked down the hall. But he knew. I stopped responding. That's when he escalated. One night, I came home to find a note slid under my door. No envelope. Just loose paper, folded once. It read, I can still picture the layout perfectly. Entryway, couch to the left, bookshelves on the right. You keep your camera near the window, and your socks in the second drawer under the mirror. You sleep on the left side of the bed. I locked every bolt on my door and called Mariah. She stayed on the phone while I checked every room. Nothing was missing. Nothing broken. But I felt violated. I filed a police report the next day. They took it seriously, sort of. They said since he hadn't physically entered the apartment again, it was disturbing, but not illegal. They suggested I get a camera. Maybe a new lock. I did both. I also changed my routine. Started entering through the back exit. Took different routes home. Stopped posting anything about my location online. He never contacted me again directly. But I saw a post on a niche photography forum a few weeks later. A user had uploaded a grainy photo of a familiar bedroom layout, my bedroom, taken from outside the window. The caption read, "Some spaces stay with you." I reported the post. It was removed, but I still moved 2 weeks later. I didn't even like him that much. That's what made it worse. His name was Drew. He had a crooked smile, thick forearms, and the kind of confidence that comes from being liked too easily. We matched on a Thursday, flirted through the weekend, and met for drinks the following Tuesday. I wasn't expecting much. Just a warm body, a decent laugh, maybe a kiss if the vibe was right. Instead, we ended up in a booth at a divey cocktail lounge, knees touching, talking about everything from childhood trauma to favorite ramen spots. He said things like, "I like when women don't filter themselves, and you're easy to talk to, not like most people." I fell for it a little. Not fully. Just enough to text him afterward. "Hey, I had fun tonight. You've got that rare combo of smart and not full of shit." To which he replied, "Same. You're refreshing. Let's do it again soon." The next day, nothing. No text. No meme. No cute thinking about you check-in. I waited a day, then sent a chill message. "No pressure, but I'm free Thursday if you want to grab food." Nothing. I got ghosted. It happens. I've done it. It sucks, but it's part of the game. What I didn't expect was what came next. 2 weeks later, Mariah sent me a link. No context. Just, "Hey, I think this is about you. It was a Reddit thread. /online dating fails. I clicked. My heart sank. There it was, screenshots of our conversation. My message about him being smart and not full of shit. My follow-up text about Thursday dinner. The captions were brutal. When she thinks your trauma bond was flirting. She said refreshing like I'm a LaCroix. They weren't just mocking me. They were dissecting me like I was some kind of specimen. One comment said, "This chick sounds like she'd bring up her therapist during sex." Another called me overconfident mid. The username wasn't Drew's real name, but the profile picture was cropped from his dating app. Same shirt, same background. He just edited his name out of the texts and left mine out too, but the messages were unmistakably mine. Word for word. Emoji for emoji. I felt sick. I told Mariah, "This can't be real." "Who does this?" She said, "A lot of them. You just caught one." I didn't know what to do. I wasn't doxxed. My name wasn't there. But it was still me. My words. My vulnerability. Something that felt safe in the moment, now turned into content for strangers to laugh at. I messaged him. "Why would you post our conversation on Reddit?" He replied like nothing was wrong. "It was funny. Don't take it so seriously." I stared at the screen. "You humiliated me." His bubble popped up, then disappeared. Then again. He finally wrote, "Look, it wasn't personal. People post dating stuff all the time. Grow up." I blocked him. Then I cried. Not just because it hurt, though it did, but because it made me feel stupid for ever thinking I was safe. I'd been careful. I hadn't overshared. I hadn't said anything I'd be ashamed of. And still, I'd been turned into a punchline. I kept checking the thread. Comments kept coming, some supportive but most brutal. Cruel in that casual, anonymous way. I didn't leave my apartment for a weekend. Eventually, I contacted Reddit's reporting system. I flagged the post for harassment. It took 5 days for it to be taken down. No apology. No message. Just gone. But I knew it had already been saved. Shared. Screenshot. Archived. Once something like that is out there, it doesn't vanish. It lingers in group chats. In Dropbox folders. In late-night Discord calls. I stopped using dating apps for a while. I didn't delete them. Just went cold. I couldn't swipe without wondering who else was watching. Who else was waiting to screenshot me? It's not just about being ghosted anymore. It's about being dissected by strangers for sport. People talk about dating fatigue, like it's about too many first dates. But for me, it's about being vulnerable in a space where people treat you like a meme. I've since started using a fake name on apps. I keep my messages simple. I don't send photos. I don't flirt unless I'm sure. I still go on dates, but I don't get comfortable until I've seen how they talk about their exes. How they treat waiters. Whether their phone is face up or face down. I play defense now. Because I learned the hard way that sometimes, the person you think you're connecting with is already planning to turn you into a joke for their group chat. Or worse, their Reddit clout. At first, I thought he just got lucky. You know how sometimes you match with someone, and it's like they've read your mind? Same music, same taste in movies, same weird guilty pleasure foods? That was Caleb. He said something in his first message about the band in my profile, an obscure indie group I'd followed since college, and I immediately grinned. Most guys open with "Hey beautiful," or "What's up?" He opened with a lyric I hadn't heard anyone quote in years. It felt like fate. We started chatting late at night. He had this easy confidence, like he wasn't trying to sell himself. Just existing. I liked that. I'd just gotten out of something complicated and wasn't looking for anything serious. But Caleb made it hard to stay detached. He was attentive but not clingy. Knew when to leave space but also when to lean in. Our conversations got flirtier quickly, but not in a gross way, just enough double entendre to make me bite my lip while reading. He had a way of making compliments feel like secrets. "You're trouble, aren't you?" he messaged one night after I sent a blurry photo of my legs stretched out in bed, with only a book in frame. "That's a dangerously good angle." I replied, "Maybe." "You want to find out?" He said, "Only if you promise to ruin my life a little." We met for drinks a few days later. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, slightly messy hair, worn denim jacket, and eyes that lingered just long enough to feel deliberate. He hugged me like we'd done it a dozen times before. I remember wondering, briefly, if we'd met before. The date was good. Really good. We sat at the bar for hours, knees brushing, ordering more drinks than we probably should have. He made me laugh until I snorted. When I excused myself to the restroom, he said, Don't be gone too long. I'm already imagining what you look like without that sweater. I rolled my eyes and smiled, cheeks warm. When I came back, he'd paid the tab. My treat, he said. You can get the next one. We walked the long way to my car. At one point, he reached for my hand without asking. It wasn't forced. It felt like he already knew I'd let him. Before I got in my car, he kissed me. Not rushed. Not too soft either. Just enough pressure to remind me what it felt like to want someone again. I texted Mariah the next morning. May have just met someone who actually gets it. She replied, You saying that means I need to see this man's face immediately. I sent her his profile. She gave her standard hot but not too hot blessing. We saw each other again that weekend. Then again the next week. Everything felt aligned. But that's when I started noticing the familiarity. Too many things were coincidences. He mentioned a bakery I used to post about in my stories years ago. Knew my favorite cocktail without asking. Once, I caught him humming a song I'd tweeted about obsessively in 2018. I said, Wait, how do you know that? He shrugged. Lucky guess. But it didn't feel lucky. It felt rehearsed. I started digging. I went back to my Instagram, searched through my archive. That bakery? I hadn't posted about it in years. That song? Buried in a playlist I'd shared once on my old Tumblr. The cocktail? It wasn't even on the menu at the place we went. He had to ask the bartender to make it. I checked his name against people I went to college with. Nothing. Then I searched his full name on Facebook. There he was. Same face. Same smirk. Different city. Different name on his dating profile. Caleb wasn't his real name. And then I saw it. We'd gone to high school together. He was a year below me. Quiet. Forgettable. I wouldn't have recognized him now, not with the facial hair and the confidence. But it was him. I stared at the profile photo for a long time, heart thudding. I messaged him. We went to high school together. Why didn't you tell me? He replied 8 minutes later. Wasn't sure you'd remember me. I figured it didn't matter. It matters. He said, I've had a crush on you since junior year. I didn't know how to say that without sounding like a stalker. I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me felt violated. Another part of me remembered the way he kissed me, hands on my waist, like he knew exactly where to touch. I remembered how I'd wanted to be wanted again. But this wasn't the same as a teenage crush. This was a man who'd built an entire persona around things I liked. Things I'd posted, shared, forgotten. He hadn't just waited for me. He'd studied me. I stopped replying. He messaged again the next day. I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I just wanted to be close to you. You don't know what it's like, watching someone become your dream girl, and knowing they'd never even look at you. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that night. His voice was quiet, shaky. I didn't mean to lie. I just wanted to be the version of me you might actually choose. I blocked his number. He found me on Instagram the next week. A new account. No posts. Just a message. I was never trying to hurt you. Then another. You looked really good in that green sweater last Friday. I wasn't trying to scare you. I just think about you a lot. I reported the account. Blocked it. I told Mariah everything. She gasped. That's not romance. That's a long-form trap. She wasn't wrong. I changed my number. Locked down every account. Turned off story replies. Unlinked old blogs. Deleted playlists. The next time someone tells me they just happened to like the same obscure bands I do, I'll hesitate. We moved in together too fast. I knew it. My friends knew it. Hell, even my mom hinted at it in that careful way she does when she's trying not to step on my autonomy. But I'd been lonely. And when Eric came along, it felt like someone had finally matched my pace. He was decisive, confident, the kind of guy who made you feel like the world was slightly more manageable when he was around. We met at a friend's rooftop party in early spring. He was funny, attentive, and had that easy, disarming sarcasm that made me forget how guarded I usually am. 6 weeks after we met, we were talking about moving in together. By month 3, he was already staying at my place most nights. By month 5, he had a key and half my closet. The lease was mine. My name, my credit, my rent payments. But he brought in furniture, cooked dinner, even got to know the neighbors better than I did. It felt like we were building something real. Until it didn't. It started with little things. He'd get weirdly controlling about the thermostat, about how I loaded the dishwasher, about when and how I vacuumed. At first, I laughed it off. You're such a Virgo. I'd tease, even though he never actually told me his birthday. Then there were the nights he wouldn't come home. No text. No call. Just silence until morning, when he'd walk in with coffee like nothing had happened. I asked him once, "Where were you last night?" He blinked. "Out." "Out where? Why do you care?" That was the first time I felt the shift. The first time his voice carried something sharp underneath. I started noticing other things. His stories didn't line up. He said he was a freelance web developer, but I never once saw him work. He said he didn't use social media, but I found a burner Instagram account with a fake name and photos of him with people I didn't know. I confronted him. He laughed. "You're being dramatic." I told him I wanted him to move out. That's when everything changed. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just said, "I don't think I'm going anywhere." I blinked. "What?" "I live here now," he said. "You invited me in. I've been here for months. This is my home too." I pointed at the lease. "You're not on it." He smiled. "Doesn't matter. Texas law gives tenant rights after 30 days. You'd have to evict me." I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. The next morning, I called my property manager. She confirmed it. If someone has been living in your home for 30 days, even without a lease, they can claim tenant rights. I had to go through a formal process to remove him. I felt like I was going insane. He started leaving his stuff everywhere, intentionally messy. He refused to leave during the day, even when I had to work from home. He took long showers during my Zoom calls. One afternoon, he walked into the background shirtless while I was on a client call and winked at the camera. I filed the first notice to vacate. He laughed when I handed it to him. "You think a piece of paper is going to get rid of me?" he said. I started sleeping at Mariah's. I couldn't be in my own apartment without feeling like I was under siege. He texted me constantly. "Come home. We can work this out. You're being paranoid." When I didn't respond, he started posting vague quotes on his burner account. Things like, "You never really know someone until you live with them," and "Some people turn out to be strangers in disguise." One night, I came back to grab a few things. He wasn't supposed to be home. I told him 2 days in advance I'd be stopping by. But when I walked in, he was sitting on the couch, lights off, just waiting. "Miss me?" he said. I didn't even answer. I walked straight to the bedroom, grabbed what I could, and left. The next day, I filed an official eviction notice through the county. That's when the mask really came off. He showed up to the hearing in a blazer and said I had invited him to live there under a verbal agreement. He claimed he'd paid for groceries and utilities and should be entitled to reimbursement or adequate time to transition out. He brought fake receipts. Literally printed out fake Venmo screenshots claiming he'd paid me rent. I was lucky. I had proof, bank statements, lease agreements, texts showing he'd never paid a cent. The judge ruled in my favor. He had 10 days to vacate. On day 9, I came home and found my apartment trashed. Not destroyed, just violated. Drawers left open. My clothes dumped on the floor. The fridge door wide open. My toothbrush snapped in half and left on the counter. No signs of forced entry, but I knew it was him. He still had the key. I changed the locks that night. He left one final note in my mailbox. "You'll always wonder who I really was." That's the part one like most. I didn't sleep for a week. I hired a locksmith to install a deadbolt with a keypad. I bought pepper spray. I told my boss. My friends. I documented everything. Eventually it stopped. The texts. The posts. The notes. It's been almost a year now. I still live in the same apartment. I thought about moving, but I didn't want to let him chase me out of my own space. I've reclaimed it, piece by piece. The thing that gets me isn't just how he manipulated me into letting him in. It's how easy it was for him to stay. All he had to do was wait. Wait until I was comfortable enough to give him a drawer, a key, a toothbrush. Wait until the law said he had rights over my space, just by occupying it. He never cared about me. He cared about control. I started using the check-in app after a girl I knew from college went missing for 3 days. She was fine in the end, just off the grid at a wellness retreat, but that didn't stop the spiral it sent me into. So I downloaded one of those safety apps. The kind where you pick emergency contacts, drop pins before dates or solo runs, and send quick alerts if something feels off. I liked the simplicity of it. Just a few taps and someone knew where I was. I only ever shared my check-ins with 2 people, my best friend Mariah and my boyfriend at the time, Wes. Wes and I met at a trivia night. He was the kind of guy you wouldn't look at twice if he wasn't funny. But he was funny. Smart, too, in a way that didn't feel performative. He wasn't trying to impress me, which was probably what impressed me most. We started dating 2 weeks after we met. He asked if he could walk me home after our second date, and I remember thinking, he's actually safe. Funny how wrong you can be about someone. We dated for 8 months. It was good mostly. He was thoughtful, occasionally intense, and weirdly intuitive. He had this knack for knowing when I was having a hard day before I even said anything. At first, I thought it was romantic, like he was tuned into my frequency. Later, I'd wonder if he was just watching. I told him about the check-in app around month 2. We were getting drinks, and I just tapped the "I'm here" button to let Mariah know I'd arrived. He saw the screen and leaned in. "What's that?" "It's just a safety thing," I said. "Let someone know where I am when I go out." "Smart," he said. "You trust me enough to share with me?" It felt like flirting, like a little intimacy test. So I added him. He didn't mention it again. After that, we got close fast. He started sleeping over 3 or 4 nights a week. Knew my coffee order. Had a toothbrush at my place. We had a rhythm that felt easy, but also a little curated. Like he was always one step ahead of me. He'd ask how my therapy session went when I hadn't told him I had one. He'd predict what I'd order at brunch before I even opened the menu. He once showed up at the exact trail I was running on with Gatorade and said, "Thought you'd be here." At the time, I chalked it up to compatibility. But now I know better. The breakup was mine. I initiated it. Not because he was awful, he wasn't. He was just too present. Too inside my space. He'd get cold when I wanted time alone. He'd sulk if I didn't text back within an hour. He once showed up at my apartment after I said I needed a night to myself, acting like he forgot I'd said that. I should have ended it then. But I didn't want to be dramatic, or ungrateful, or rude. Eventually I just told him, gently, that I didn't feel like we were working anymore. He took it well. Suspiciously well. He nodded, hugged me, and said, "I get it. Thanks for being honest. I hope we can still talk sometimes." I said, maybe. With some space. That was 2 months ago. I didn't hear from him again. No angry texts. No guilt tripping. No late night, "I miss you" voice notes. Just silence. I thought, weirdly, that maybe he was one of the rare ones who actually meant it when he said he respected boundaries. Then things started happening. It started with the bar. I was out with Mariah on a Tuesday night. We sat at the back, near the window, catching up over overpriced cocktails, when she got quiet mid-sentence and glanced toward the door. "Is that Wes?" I turned, and there he was, standing near the bar, pretending to scroll on his phone. He didn't look at me, didn't approach, just stood there for maybe 10 minutes, then left. I laughed it off. Coincidence. Then it happened again. At the farmer's market. At the bookstore 2 blocks from my apartment. At my gym of all places. Always the same pattern. He'd show up, not say anything, and leave. I started feeling like I was being haunted. But I couldn't prove anything. He wasn't doing anything illegal. Just loitering. Existing. Near me. Then came the check-in. I'd forgotten he still had access to the app. It had faded into the background of my phone, like an old alarm you forget to disable. One night, I went to a friend's show at a dive bar across town. I checked in without thinking, like I always did. 10 minutes later, Wes walked in. I froze. He saw me. Smiled like it was fate. Like this was just some adorable coincidence. "Hey," he said, walking up. "Didn't know you liked this band." I stared at him. "Wes, what are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Just out. Saw the posters. Thought I'd check it out." I didn't believe him. I left halfway through the set. At home, I opened the app and checked the sharing settings. He was still on the list. I removed him. Then I checked the history. He'd been checking my location history for months. Even after we broke up. Every check-in I'd made, bars, hikes, coffee shops, he'd seen it. Logged it. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding. I texted Mariah. "He's been watching me." She called immediately. "What the hell?" I told her everything. She made me promise to go to the police. I didn't. Because what would I say? My ex-boyfriend is showing up in public places. He hasn't said anything threatening, but I think he's following me. They'd ask if I had proof. I didn't. Until the parking garage. It was a Friday night. I was leaving a friend's apartment downtown, walking to my car in one of those dim, echoey parking structures that always feel one flickering light away from a horror film. I heard footsteps. Soft. Measured. Following mine. I turned. It was Wes. He stepped into view like he'd been waiting for me to notice. "Wes," I said. What the actual fuck are you doing? He smiled. I wanted to talk. In a parking garage? You blocked me. Didn't leave me another option. I took a step back. This isn't okay. I just want closure, he said. You owe me that. I don't owe you anything, I said. You've been following me. He shrugged. You let me. I blinked, confused. The app, he said. You let me see where you were. You invited me in. I didn't hack anything. I felt cold all over. I removed you, I said. Too late, he replied. He took a step toward me. I turned and bolted. I barely remembered unlocking the car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys once, and when I finally got inside, I locked the doors and sped out of the garage without looking back. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at Mariah's. The next morning, I went to the police. They listened. They were polite, but they said the same thing I already knew. He hasn't made a direct threat. You could file a restraining order, but unless he violates something, we can't do much. So I filed. I sent screenshots of the app history. I printed out every check-in, every time he'd appeared after I'd logged my location. I wrote a statement. It was approved. He never challenged it. I deleted the check-in app the same day. I don't know if he's still watching me. I changed my number, locked down my Instagram, made my Venmo private. I even moved apartments a few months later, smaller place, different part of the city, no forwarding address. I still feel him sometimes. Not literally. Just that hum of uncertainty that someone might still be looking. I don't use safety apps anymore. I rely on texts, phone calls, real friends. I could tell he didn't want to be there the moment he sat down. His name was Darren. We matched on a Sunday, chatted briefly, and met on a Wednesday night at a wine bar that I'd suggested. Dim lighting, jazz in the background, the kind of place where you linger. I wore a navy blue dress and my favorite ankle boots. He was 10 minutes late and didn't apologize. He walked in scrolling his phone, barely looked up and said, "Hey, sorry. It's been a day." I smiled politely. "Rough one." He shrugged. "Meetings. Calls. You know how it is." I didn't. I work in nonprofit development. My days are full of grant proposals and donor calls, not whatever finance-adjacent chaos he was clearly hinting at. But I nodded anyway. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, trying to reset the energy. "Yeah, no problem," he replied, eyes flicking to his screen again. The waiter came by. I ordered a glass of Tempranillo. Darren waved vaguely at the menu and muttered, "Cab's fine." I tried to ask him questions. "So you're in business development?" "Sort of. Startup world." "Yeah. What kind of company?" He checked a notification. "Tech adjacent. Mostly consulting. A lot of moving pieces right now." "Sounds intense." He looked up, finally, for half a second. "It is. That's why I'm not really doing this dating thing much. But your profile seemed, I don't know, real." I blinked. "Thanks." He smiled, but it felt like a reflex. "No offense, but most people on these apps try way too hard. Your pictures weren't filtered. That's rare. I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." I sipped my wine. He didn't touch his. He checked his phone again. This time, he actually typed something. I watched him do it, thumbs moving fast. He didn't even pretend to hide it. "Sorry," he said. "1 second. Just need to confirm a thing." I waited. 30 seconds. Then a minute. He finished typing and looked up, clearly expecting me to resume the conversation. "So what do you do again?" he asked, like I hadn't already told him in our messages. "I work in nonprofit fundraising." "Right. That's cool. Must be exhausting." "Sometimes." He nodded. Checked his phone again. I counted. 6 times in 10 minutes. I tried again. "So, what do you do for fun when you're not consulting or texting?" He smirked. "Honestly, not much these days. I'm usually working." I laughed lightly. "Everyone's working. What about when you're not?" He sighed, like I was asking too much. "I like running. Podcasts. I don't know. I'm not really in a fun phase right now." "Then why date?" He looked at me finally. If you're in a phase where you're not really into fun, why bother dating?" He didn't answer right away. Just swirled his wine, still untouched. Then, "Honestly, I've just been saying yes to things. Trying to be open. But I've got a thing at 9, so I can't stay too long." It was 7:18. I blinked. "You have something else tonight?" "Yeah. Just a thing with some people from work. Networking/drinks/whatever." I stared at him. "You double booked a date and a work event?" He shrugged. It's not a big deal. I figured this would be like quick. Vibe check, then move on. Move on to drinks with people you already know. He smiled like I was being unreasonable. Look, I'm busy. It's not personal. I set my glass down. It is actually. Personal, I mean. You invited me out. You agreed to spend time with me. And now you're clock watching. I didn't invite you. You asked me. It took me a second to respond. I laughed once. Not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe how casually he said it. Wow, I said. He held his hands up. I'm just being honest. No, you're being rude. He looked offended. Okay, hold on. No, I said, standing. Don't hold on. You clearly don't want to be here. So don't be. He blinked. Are you serious? Dead serious. I grabbed my purse. Look, he said, still seated. I'm just trying to be efficient with my time. That's all. This isn't a calendar block. It's a person. I'm a person. He rolled his eyes. Don't be dramatic. I leaned in slightly. Here's the thing, Darren. I've been on bad dates. I've been on boring dates. But I've never been on one where I felt like a time slot between two meetings. That's not efficiency. That's disrespect. You could have just said you weren't interested. I was. Until you showed me who you are. I walked out. He didn't follow. Didn't text. Didn't apologize. I called Mariah on the way home. Let me guess, she said after I told her the story. Finance bro who thought being emotionally unavailable was a personality? Worse, I said. He thought it was efficient. She laughed. Please tell me you didn't pay. I didn't even finish my wine. I went home, took off my dress, and lay on the couch in silence for a while. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was just tired. Tired of men who show up halfway and expect you to be grateful. Tired of confusing busyness with value. Tired of being polite to people who mistake presence for effort. Darren wasn't the first guy to treat a date like a networking opportunity. But he'll be the last one I let do it without a response. Because I deserve to be someone's full attention, not their filler event. And if that makes me dramatic, so be it. The message came late on a Tuesday night. Half awake I saw it. Instagram. Message request. Username at JD_2020. No profile photo. No posts. No followers. Just the blank gray circle and one line that read, "Hey, you seem like you're doing well." I was about to delete it. I get message requests now and then, spam, fake profiles, sometimes a guy from high school I barely remember who wants to catch up. But something about this one made me pause. Maybe it was the phrasing. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't posted anything in over a week. Or maybe it was because I had a feeling who it was. I clicked the profile. Following two people, me and Jason M. Jason, my ex-boyfriend of 10 months. My ex-boyfriend who, when I finally left, stood in the doorway for 20 minutes asking if I was really going to throw all this away. I hadn't heard from him since. I'd blocked his number, his socials, even his email. But this message wasn't from him. Still, I knew. I replied, "Is this about Jason?" The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. "He hasn't left the house in weeks. He won't eat. He just lies there. You broke him." I sat up straighter. Another message came before I could respond. "And you don't even care." I exhaled slowly. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who is this? A full minute passed. Then, his mother. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because of course it was her. Lorraine. She never liked me, not really. She smiled too much. Called me sweet girl, in a way that felt more like a warning than a compliment. She texted Jason constantly, even when we were out together. Once she dropped off soup when he had a cold and lingered for over an hour while we watched a movie. She asked once if I'd consider being softer during disagreements. I thought she meant gentle. I think now she meant silent. I typed, "You made a fake account just to message me?" I didn't know how else to reach you. Jason won't talk to anyone. I've never seen him like this. He's not the same. I'm sorry he's struggling. But I left for a reason. You left without warning. You didn't talk to him. You just disappeared. He's devastated. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did. I paused. I'd told myself I was done explaining. But something about her tone, the assumption that I owed her an explanation, that Jason was the only one hurting, made me want to reply. Not to convince her. Just to say it out loud. So I did. One message at a time. Jason used to go silent if I didn't text him back fast enough. He hated when I wore red lipstick to work. said it made me look like I was trying too hard. He once told me that my job, my actual career, was a cute hobby. He logged into my calendar without asking, just to see when I was free. He told me I was selfish for going to therapy. When I cried, he said I was being manipulative. When I got promoted, he said I was lucky. When I tried to leave the first time, he blocked the door. She didn't reply. I watched the little scene, icon sit there for almost 10 minutes. Then finally, that doesn't sound like the Jason I know. I'm sure it doesn't. Because he's your son. And you've always cleaned up after him. Another pause. Then, he's not abusive. He's just intense. He feels things deeply. I believe that. But it's not an excuse. And intensity isn't the same as cruelty. He loved you. He still does. Loving someone doesn't mean you treat them well. I waited. No response. Then, he's not eating. He's not sleeping. And he keeps saying he doesn't understand what he did wrong. That made me pause. He didn't understand? Or he didn't want to? Then tell him. You're his mother. He won't listen to me. He says I don't get it. That I never had a relationship like this. Maybe he's right. She read it. Then nothing. Then 20 minutes later. Would you meet me? Just me. I want to understand. I want to hear it from you. I hesitated. Every part of me said no. I had nothing to gain from talking to her. I wasn't interested in rehashing everything for someone who believed her son could do no wrong. But another part, quieter, sharper, thought maybe it was time someone told her the truth out loud. One coffee. That's it. Thank you. I'm not doing this for Jason. I'm doing it for me. Understood. Saturday, 11 a.m. The cafe on Charles Street. I'll be there. I closed the app and tossed my phone onto the couch. I sat there in silence, staring at the ceiling, wondering what exactly I hoped to get from this meeting. Closure? Vindication? Maybe just the satisfaction of not being silent anymore. Jason's not the first person who hurt me and walked away thinking he was the victim. But he might be the last who gets to do it without hearing what it actually cost. And if his mother is finally ready to listen, she'd better bring a notebook. Lorraine was already there when I arrived. She sat at a corner table, hands clasped around a mug that hadn't been sipped. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a pale blue sweater like the kind you'd expect a kindergarten teacher to wear on picture day. She looked smaller than I remembered. She stood when she saw me. "Thank you for coming," she said. I gave a slight nod and sat across from her. "I won't stay long." She looked down. Understood. I ordered a coffee from the barista and returned to the table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cafe murmured quietly around us, cutlery clinking, espresso machines hissing, soft jazz playing overhead. Then she said, "Jason hasn't left the house since you agreed to meet. He keeps asking if I've heard more." I didn't respond. She took a breath. "I know you think I'm just here to defend him, but I'm not. I didn't know. About the things you said." I met her eyes. "You didn't want to know." She blinked, but didn't argue. "For 10 months, I said, I shrank myself to make Jason feel bigger. I stopped wearing lipstick. I stopped talking about my job. I stopped calling my friends back. I became this quiet, careful version of myself, just to avoid his moods." Lorraine's hands tightened around her mug. "He called it love," I continued. "But it felt like control. And you showed up with banana bread and told me he was sensitive. You told me that women like me needed to learn how to guide men like him." Her cheeks flushed. I thought I was helping. "You weren't." She looked away. I sipped my coffee. "You want to know why he's not eating? Not sleeping? It's because for the first time in his life, someone walked away from him and didn't come back." Her voice was small. "He says he misses you." I nodded. "I know, but he misses the version of me that made herself small. That version's gone." Lorraine was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, "What do I say to him?" I looked at her. "Tell him to stop waiting for me to come back. And tell him, if he really wants to change, he has to stop calling pain passion and start calling it what it is." She swallowed, her throat tight. I stood. "I hope he gets better. But that's not my job anymore." And I walked out. The cafe door closed behind me with a soft click. I didn't look back. The message came late on a Tuesday night. Half awake I saw it. Instagram. Message request. Username at JD_2020. No profile photo. No posts. No followers. Just the blank gray circle and one line that read, "Hey, you seem like you're doing well." I was about to delete it. I get message requests now and then, spam, fake profiles, sometimes a guy from high school I barely remember who wants to catch up. But something about this one made me pause. Maybe it was the phrasing. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't posted anything in over a week. Or maybe it was because I had a feeling who it was. I clicked the profile, following two people, me and Jason M. Jason, my ex-boyfriend of 10 months. My ex-boyfriend who, when I finally left, stood in the doorway for 20 minutes asking if I was really going to throw all this away. I hadn't heard from him since. I'd blocked his number, his socials, even his email. But this message wasn't from him. Still, I knew. I replied, "Is this about Jason?" The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. "He hasn't left the house in weeks. He won't eat. He just lies there. You broke him." I sat up straighter. Another message came before I could respond. "And you don't even care." I exhaled slowly. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who is this? A full minute passed. Then, his mother. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because of course it was her. Lorraine. She never liked me, not really. She smiled too much. Called me sweet girl, in a way that felt more like a warning than a compliment. She texted Jason constantly, even when we were out together. Once she dropped off soup when he had a cold and lingered for over an hour while we watched a movie. She asked once if I'd consider being softer during disagreements. I thought she meant gentle. I think now she meant silent. I typed, "You made a fake account just to message me?" I didn't know how else to reach you. Jason won't talk to anyone. I've never seen him like this. He's not the same. I'm sorry he's struggling. But I left for a reason. You left without warning. You didn't talk to him. You just disappeared. He's devastated. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did. I paused. I'd told myself I was done explaining. But something about her tone, the assumption that I owed her an explanation, that Jason was the only one hurting, made me want to reply. Not to convince her. Just to say it out loud. So I did. One message at a time. Jason used to go silent if I didn't text him back fast enough. He hated when I wore red lipstick to work. Said it made me look like I was trying too hard. He once told me that my job, my actual career, was a cute hobby. He logged into my calendar without asking, just to see when I was free. He told me I was selfish for going to therapy. When I cried, he said I was being manipulative. When I got promoted, he said I was lucky. When I tried to leave the first time, he blocked the door. She didn't reply. I watched the little scene, icon sit there for almost 10 minutes. Then finally, "That doesn't sound like the Jason I know." "I'm sure it doesn't. Because he's your son. And you've always cleaned up after him." Another pause. Then, "He's not abusive. He's just intense. He feels things deeply." I believe that. But it's not an excuse. And intensity isn't the same as cruelty. He loved you. He still does. Loving someone doesn't mean you treat them well. I waited. No response. Then, "He's not eating. He's not sleeping. And he keeps saying he doesn't understand what he did wrong." That made me pause. He didn't understand? Or he didn't want to? Then tell him. You're his mother. He won't listen to me. He says I don't get it. That I never had a relationship like this. Maybe he's right. She read it. Then nothing. Then 20 minutes later. "Would you meet me? Just me. I want to understand. I want to hear it from you." I hesitated. Every part of me said no. I had nothing to gain from talking to her. I wasn't interested in rehashing everything for someone who believed her son could do no wrong. But another part, quieter, sharper, thought maybe it was time someone told her the truth out loud. "One coffee. That's it. Thank you. I'm not doing this for Jason. I'm doing it for me." Understood. Saturday, 11 a.m. The cafe on Charles Street. "I'll be there." I closed the app and tossed my phone onto the couch. I sat there in silence, staring at the ceiling, wondering what exactly I hoped to get from this meeting. Closure? Vindication? Maybe just the satisfaction of not being silent anymore. Jason's not the first person who hurt me and walked away thinking he was the victim. But he might be the last who gets to do it without hearing what it actually cost. And if his mother is finally ready to listen, she'd better bring a notebook. Lorraine was already there when I arrived. She sat at a corner table, hands clasped around a mug that hadn't been sipped. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a pale blue sweater like the kind you'd expect a kindergarten teacher to wear on picture day. She looked smaller than I remembered. She stood when she saw me. "Thank you for coming," she said. I gave a slight nod and sat across from her. "I won't stay long," She looked down. Understood. I ordered a coffee from the barista and returned to the table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cafe murmured quietly around us, cutlery clinking, espresso machines hissing, soft jazz playing overhead. Then she said, "Jason hasn't left the house since you agreed to meet. He keeps asking if I've heard more." I didn't respond. She took a breath. "I know you think I'm just here to defend him, but I'm not. I didn't know. About the things you said." I met her eyes. "You didn't want to know." She blinked, but didn't argue. "For 10 months, I said, I shrank myself to make Jason feel bigger. I stopped wearing lipstick. I stopped talking about my job. I stopped calling my friends back. I became this quiet, careful version of myself, just to avoid his moods." Lorraine's hands tightened around her mug. "He called it love," I continued. "But it felt like control. And you showed up with banana bread and told me he was sensitive. You told me that women like me needed to learn how to guide men like him." Her cheeks flushed. "I thought I was helping. You weren't." She looked away. I sipped my coffee. "You want to know why he's not eating? Not sleeping? It's because for the first time in his life, someone walked away from him and didn't come back." Her voice was small. "He says he misses you." I nodded. "I know, but he misses the version of me that made herself small. That version's gone." Lorraine was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, "What do I say to him?" I looked at her. "Tell him to stop waiting for me to come back. And tell him, if he really wants to change, he has to stop calling pain passion and start calling it what it is." She swallowed, her throat tight. I stood. "I hope he gets better. But that's not my job anymore." And I walked out. The cafe door closed behind me with a soft click. I didn't look back. He introduced himself as Garrett, but said it like a confession. 2 R's, 2 T's. Blame my parents. It's a name that looks symmetrical on paper, which I suppose is the only place I've ever been symmetrical. I laughed. He smiled in that practiced, slow way that made you feel like he saw something in you other people missed. We met at a rooftop bar. He picked it, said it had the best view of the city and the worst cocktails, something about imbalance keeping you honest. He was older than me by maybe 7 years. Wore a charcoal blazer and a black shirt, open at the collar. No tie. His hair was swept back like he'd just come from somewhere expensive. Garrett spoke like a man who'd spent time with therapists but never fully bought in. He listened. Closely. You could feel it. But it was also clear he was measuring, assessing, filing away every answer like data. When I asked what he did, he said, "I work in private acquisitions. People give me things they're not ready to sell." I asked if that was supposed to be poetic or literal. He said both. The first 45 minutes were magnetic. He told stories that held tension in the middle, like he'd learned how to pace them perfectly. He asked questions that felt invasive, but in a way that made you want to answer them. Then, in the middle of a second drink, he said it. "I dated a married woman for 4 years." He said it like he was telling me he'd spent time abroad. I blinked. "You mean like an affair?" He nodded. "Affair is such a judgmental word. I prefer parallel relationship." I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. "She was married," he said, "but not available." "That's different." I asked if her husband knew. He smirked. He suspected. But suspicion isn't proof. And proof doesn't always lead to action. I watched him closely. He sipped his drink. "I'm not proud of it," he said. "But I'm not ashamed either. She was the most honest relationship I've had." I didn't respond. He looked at me. "You're judging." "I'm processing." He leaned forward. "Let me ask you something. If someone makes you feel more alive, more seen, more you, do you owe that experience to a calendar or a contract?" I said, "You owe it to the people involved." He smiled. "That's the polite answer. Not the true one." We left the rooftop and walked through the city. He told me about her. Her name was Ilsa, which sounded made up but probably wasn't. She was a photographer. Had a husband who worked in finance and thought loyalty meant paying the mortgage on time. She used to say, Garrett recalled, that living with him was like sleeping next to a wall. No cruelty. Just nothing. I said, "That's sad." He nodded. "It is. But it's also real." I asked, "Did she love you?" He looked at me with a kind of reverence. "She loved the part of herself I gave her permission to be." That didn't answer the question. I asked what happened. "She left," he said. "Not him. Me." "Why?" Garrett smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She said I made her forget she was real." I didn't understand. She meant it as a compliment, he said. But it scared her. He texted me the next day. Dinner tonight? I promise not to talk about married women. Unless you want me to. I didn't reply for 5 hours. Then I said yes. We met at a place with dark booths and menus printed on leather. He ordered for both of us without asking. When I raised an eyebrow, he said, "Trust is dinner's first ingredient." Over the meal, he asked me about my past, my fears, my earliest memory of rejection. He didn't flinch at any answer. Just nodded, like he'd heard it all before. At one point, I asked, "Do you ever worry you're just good at sounding sincere?" He laughed. "I've been accused of that more than once." "Is it true?" He leaned in. "Does it feel true?" It did. And it didn't. By the third date, I was hooked but uneasy. He was brilliant, magnetic, precise. But there was something hollow in him, like a stage set with nothing behind the walls. We went back to his apartment. It was sleek, cold, everything in black, white, or chrome. There were no personal photos, no clutter. I asked, "Did you just move in?" He shook his head. 3 years. Feels unlived in. He looked at me. That's intentional. He poured wine. Told me about another woman briefly. Not Ilsa. Someone else. A woman who had 3 children and a husband she claimed to love. Garrett said they only slept together once. She cried afterward, he said. Said it was the first time she felt like a person in years. I stared at him. You collect people who are taken. No, he said. I find people who are trapped. That's not the same thing? He smiled. It is for them. I asked if he ever pursued women who weren't already entangled. He shrugged. It's less interesting, less urgent. When someone's already claimed, they have stakes. They know the risk. That makes them honest. That makes them desperate. That too, he said. But desperation is more truthful than politeness. I left early that night. He didn't try to stop me. He just said, when you're ready to be seen, you'll call. I didn't. But I thought about it, more than I'd like to admit. Because Garrett had this way of making morality feel like a costume, something you could wear or remove depending on the scene. He didn't seduce with touch. He seduced with permission. He made you feel like your darkest thought was actually your most authentic self. And that's the most dangerous kind of intimacy. The kind that doesn't ask you to change. Just to confess. A month later, I saw him at a bookstore. He was with a woman. Young. Wide-eyed. Laughing too loudly. He saw me. Didn't flinch. Just nodded. Like we shared a secret. Maybe we did. Maybe we still do. But I walked away. Because I don't want to be part of someone's collection. Especially not the kind they keep in glass cases, only to take out when the room gets quiet. I almost got attacked over a year ago. I was still dating around before I met my now ex. This skinny, hippie dude pops up. He checks off stoner, artistic, chill, humorous, emotional. My basic standards. Here's where I made a mistake. Instead of planning on meeting publicly, I opted on going to his house. He had roommates and that was good, right? No. We ended up watching Shameless and talking. I did smoke weed, but it didn't leave me unaware of my surroundings. He started talking about his past drug addiction with heroin. Even if he's sober now, it's not for me to have to be worrying about relapse considering my family. But hey, we dug deep. Though at this point, I made my decision to not pursue a thing. Nonetheless, we had a good conversation. But he starts immediately trying to kiss me and push his fingers down my pants. I refused and politely told him that's not what I came for. I reassured him I was just wanting to seek a companion. He seemed to accept that until 5 minutes later when he does it again. I told him no again. I guess the guru over here figured out I'm a rape survivor. I guess he knows who are rape victims and who are not just by them being defensive when he makes a dumbass move. Out of nowhere after, he tells me he was raped too. He said he learned to like it because it was just sex. All it meant was the perpetrator liked you so much that they can't control themselves. I want you to take a wild guess on what he tried to do again. I was able to push his skinny body off of me. It made me feel so strong being able to fight it off this time. I'll give it that. I started slowly walking out trying to distract him by describing my distaste for the Twilight movies. Cheesy, but it saved my ass. I rushed to my car and sped off. I was able to report his account, and I assumed they may have gotten enforcement involved as he never was back on there, and I did mention the attempted rape. It is never your fault if you are put in that situation. You can plan measures to avoid it, but know it is entirely up to a rapist to do that no matter what circumstance. But even as I say this, never ever go to someone's house if you've never met them. Not even if there's weed, not even if they have a cute bunny, not even if they have a clean-ass record. Be safe. A good person will understand these precautions. A bad person will keep coaxing you to do it. Even if you do it and whatever they do is on them, just try to avoid that situation. It's very stressful, risky, and you can be trapped. Don't make the mistake I did. Even if it's not on me, it was not worth the risk. I'm very glad it didn't happen to me again. Obligatory, not a Tinder story, but I feel like people want to read any kind of nightmare story in these uncertain times. Several years ago, I met a girl when I was working at the mall, and we texted for a while. It was going smoothly, so I invited her to a show my band was playing. She agreed to come and see us play, and we were texting pretty consistently right up to the point where she was getting in her car to come to the venue. Then nothing. Complete ghost and no response. I was annoyed, but what can you do? Roughly 6 months later, I get a call and a voicemail from an unknown number. I listen to the voicemail, and it's the girl. "Hey Jacques, it's Crystal. I don't know if you remember me, but I was on my way to see your show, and I stopped to get gas and dropped my phone in a storm drain and lost all my contacts. I finally had the idea to go back through my phone bill because I remembered you were from state I'm from and found your number. If you're still interested, I'd love to make it up to you. Now, you have to understand this was well before the cloud, so you could easily lose all of your contacts just by losing your phone, and I don't remember the exact details of her story, but I'm not sure if she had the transcriptions of the numbers she texted, or if it was from the first time I called her phone to make sure the number she gave me was correct. In any case, TI sounded legit, and I figured I'd at least get an apology so I agreed to meet up with her that weekend. I offer to meet her somewhere, but she insists on picking me up, saying that she owes me big time for meeting me, and that she's so sorry she did that to me. We go out for lunch at a sushi place and have a fine time. She's a little frenetic, but she's obviously nervous and very apologetic. When she insists on paying, I knew she had been thinking about this for months. Afterwards, we go to Starbucks for coffee. She insists on paying there too. She says she needs to stop at Nordstrom, and would I like to come? Sure, I say. Why not? She says she'll buy me anything I want. What? We get to Nordstrom, and she picks up her makeup, and we walk around. We have a little decent banter, but she's constantly offering to buy me things, and since I'm declining, it's getting a bit annoying. This is a nice sweater. I'll get it for you. Or haha, look at those shoes. Why? Do you want them? I'll get them for you. It was a bit forced, so I suggest we skip out, and now she wants to take me out for dinner. It's been long enough that I'm okay with it, and she insists on paying there too. Since it's obvious to me she's made her apology, I make an honest effort to pay, and she almost rudely refuses by pushing my card away. At this point, I'm bored with her, and this whole paying for things scheme has run its course. I'm happy to just go home afterwards, so we finish up and she drives me home. On the way back, I'm wondering if I should just follow through. She's cute and obviously interested, and has certainly paid her dues, so to speak. Before I have a chance to decide, she's parked the car and says, "Do you mind if I come up and use your bathroom?" Very clever. The decision has been made for me. She comes up and goes straight to the bathroom. She's in there long enough that I can tell she's nervous. I clean up the place a bit, put on some music, light a candle, etc., and I stand at the end of the hall waiting for her. I have my sexy pose and look ready to go so that she'll see me, and that I mean business right as she exits the bathroom. The door opens and she sees me and knows it's on. I can see the look change from uncertainty as her eyes meet mine. She walks right up to me, and I immediately get a huge, stinky whiff of poop air from my bathroom. She wasn't in there staring at herself in the mirror to muster up the courage to make the move, nor was she in there unable to resist touching herself at the very thought of our bodies unclothed and pressed against each other in mere moments. She was in there taking a ferociously giant shit, and now the air from around it was in my mouth and nose. I gagged and immediately backed away and told her that it was super nice of her to take me out and that I really appreciated it, and what a funny story, and can't wait to tell people, and I have to go to sleep right away, so bye-bye, see you later, drive safe. I had to kind of push her out the door before running back into the rest of my apartment to open all the windows and light a second, third, and fourth candle, reserved for really sexy nights. I don't remember if we texted much after that, but that smell was forever associated in my mind with her, and all possible sexiness was removed from the situation. I call it Pavlov's log. My best friend, Elia, was always trying to set me up. She believed in fate, in chemistry, in those ridiculous zodiac compatibility charts. I humored her most of the time. But when she insisted that I meet a guy named Corvin she'd recently befriended through her meditation group, I was skeptical. She told me we'd be perfect together, that he was sensitive, wounded, but intensely genuine. That last part should have been a red flag. Still, I agreed to meet him. She arranged the date for a Thursday evening at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of town, a place called Belgrave's. It was one of those dimly lit bistros with candles on the tables, mismatched antique chairs, and a string quartet playing somewhere in the background that never seemed to stop tuning. Corvin was already seated when I arrived. He stood when he saw me, smiling in a shy, almost grateful way. Tall, lean, with a mop of disheveled dark hair and gray eyes that didn't quite meet mine. His clothes were neat but worn, collar slightly frayed, cuffs faded. "You must be Lyra," he said. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. I nodded. "And you're Corvin?" He smiled again, and we sat. For the first 20 minutes, everything was fine. He asked about my job, graphic design for a publishing house, and seemed genuinely interested in my answers. He was articulate, funny in a self-deprecating way, and he had that quiet listening quality that made you feel like your words had weight. Then, somewhere between the second glass of wine and the arrival of our atres, he mentioned his ex. It was casual at first, a passing remark about how she never liked French food. I ignored it, but then he brought up another ex, then another, each story more detailed than the last. He wasn't just reminiscing, he was unraveling, telling me about one who cheated on him with his roommate, another who left without saying goodbye, one who accused him of being too intense because he kept a journal of everything she said to him during their relationship. I tried to smile, to nod politely, but my appetite was gone. "It's always the same," he said, staring down at his untouched plate. "They say they want honesty, and then they run from it." I shifted in my seat. Maybe they just weren't the right people. He looked up sharply. "No, they were right. I was too much. I cared too much. I didn't know what to say." He laughed softly, like he was in on some private joke. "You're probably thinking, wow, fourth date material, not first." I forced a smile. "A bit." He nodded solemnly. "I get it. You're not the first to say that." I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. Asked if he'd traveled anywhere recently. He told me he hadn't left the state in years. That he didn't like airports. That he used to fly often before his ex, the one named Morel, convinced him that the sky was a place where people left and never came back. I thought he was being metaphorical. But he wasn't. "She left during a thunderstorm," he said, looking past me. "Packed in the night. Didn't even take her toothbrush. I watched her taxi disappear down the street. I counted the seconds between the lightning and the thunder." "Corvin," I said gently, "maybe we should talk about something else." He blinked. "Of course. Sorry. Sometimes I don't know how much is too much." I nodded, relieved. But then he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you ever feel haunted by people who are still alive?" I froze. He smiled, a sad, crooked smile. "I do. All the time. Morel, especially. She's in my apartment. Not physically, but in the walls. In the temperature. I'll be washing dishes, and suddenly the room goes cold. Or I'll be halfway through brushing my teeth, and I'll hear her humming behind me." I swallowed. "That sounds difficult." He nodded. "I don't think she left properly. I think some part of her stayed behind. Most people don't finish things cleanly, you know? They leave pieces of themselves. And we carry them." I was no longer sure if I was on a first date or trapped in a therapy session with a man unraveling in real time. I checked my phone discreetly. An hour and a half had passed. He noticed. "You don't have to stay. I know I'm a lot." I hesitated. "It's not that. Early meeting tomorrow." He nodded, looking down at his hands. "Of course." The waiter brought the check, and I reached for my wallet, but Corvin stopped me. "I'll get it," he said. "It's the least I can do." I thanked him, stood, and gathered my coat. As we walked out, he turned to me and said quietly, "You have kind eyes, but I can tell you're already halfway out the door." I didn't answer. I just gave him a small smile and walked to my car. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. "You don't have to run. I'm not like them." I blocked the number. 2 days later, another message came. Different number. "You looked beautiful under the candlelight. I wish I could show you what I see." I blocked it too. Then the letters started. No return address. Just folded sheets of thick, unlined paper slipped into my mailbox. The first one was a poem, about a woman with moonlight in her veins, who doesn't yet realize she's already part of someone else's story. The second letter included a photograph of me, taken through my apartment window. I contacted the police. They took a report, but said there was no direct threat, no law broken. Just someone with bad boundaries, they said. Ilya felt horrible. She tried calling Corvin, but his number was disconnected. She swore she hadn't seen him since the night we met. I bought new curtains, changed my locks, got a security camera installed. It didn't matter. Notes continued arriving. One was taped to my front door. "Don't be afraid. I'm just listening. You talk in your sleep." Another came with a small velvet pouch containing a lock of hair. I don't know if it was mine. I didn't want to check. I moved out 6 weeks later. Left the city entirely. Cut contact with everyone except my sister. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I deleted my social media. Changed my name on every account. Silence, finally. Until last week. I was walking home from work in my new city, new name, new apartment, new life, when I passed a bookstore with a small display in the window. A collection of local poetry chapbooks. One was titled "Still Room for Her Ghost." The author was listed as Corvin Black. The cover was a photograph of me, sitting at that restaurant table, candlelight in my eyes. The same night we met. I stood there for a full minute, heart pounding, unable to move. I went inside and flipped through the pages. Each poem was about a woman named Lyra. A woman who smelled of antique pages and spoke in lowercase. A woman who is everywhere now, even in the silence between walls. I bought the book. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed to know if he was still watching. And the last page confirmed it. A short poem. 4 lines. No title. She left once, and I let her. She left twice, and I followed. She leaves again, but I'm already there. Behind the glass, inside the wall. I burned the book, but the words are still in my head. And sometimes when I walk past mirrors, I think I see him just behind me. Smiling. Saying nothing. Waiting for me to finish the story. I've never forgotten the first time I met Ilera. It started as many things do these days, with a Facebook message. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to. I had recently moved to a small coastal town in Oregon called Volan's Watch, a place where the fog never quite lifted and the ocean always seemed too loud, like it was trying to whisper something you weren't meant to hear. I was staying in a converted interned apartment above a bait shop, trying to write a novel I didn't really believe in. Late one night, while scrolling through my feed, her profile appeared. Her name was Ilera Vexley, and even her name felt like something out of a story. Her profile photo was magnetic, soft curls, a sharp jawline, and eyes the color of storm glass. Her captions were clever, her photos elegant but natural, sun-dappled forests, books with worn spines, candid smiles that looked too perfect to be staged. What hooked me wasn't just the photos, though. It was how quickly she responded. Within minutes of me liking one of her posts, she messaged me. "Hey Milo, you look like you think too much." I like that. The conversation that followed was fluid. Effortless. She knew all my references, from obscure Russian sci-fi novels to 90s horror films. She said she was originally from the Pacific Northwest, but had been living out of state for years. She was back in Oregon to reset, she told me. 3 days later, I asked if she wanted to meet. She agreed immediately, too immediately in hindsight. We decided on the Salt Chapel, a sleepy little cafe near the docks that smelled like driftwood and cinnamon. It was dimly lit, always half empty, and the kind of place where time moved a little slower. The day of the date was overcast, naturally. I arrived 10 minutes early and sat at a corner booth near the window. I wore a navy button-down I hadn't ironed and tried not to look like I'd spent 20 minutes rehearsing what I'd say first. She wasn't there. I assumed she was running late. I ordered a black coffee with a shot of honey and waited. 20 minutes passed. Then I saw her. Except, it wasn't her. A woman stood at the door scanning the room. She waved, and I instinctively waved back, confused. She approached with a wide, almost feverish smile. Her skin was pale, her hair wiry and white, pulled into a tight bun. She wore a dark gray pea coat, frayed at the sleeves. Her eyes, behind thick glasses, were bright but distant. She looked like someone's grandmother, not the woman from the photos. But she walked right up to me. "Milo," she asked. My throat tightened. "Yes, I'm Ilera." I stared at her. She sat across from me without waiting for permission, her smile unwavering. The cafe's light flickered slightly, and for a second, I felt like I was in a different version of my life, one where nothing made sense. "I'm sorry," I said. "You said you're Ilera?" She nodded and reached into her coat pocket, pulling out a phone. She opened the Facebook app and showed me our chat. Same messages. Same timestamps. "I used AI to generate the pictures," she said calmly. "I didn't think you'd show up if you saw the real me." I couldn't speak. "I've tried real photos before," she continued. "No one ever replies." My stomach turned. I stood up, unsure whether to yell or leave or just disappear into the fog outside. "That's not okay," I said. "You lied. You made me believe." She tilted her head. "But we did connect. You said it yourself." I walked out. She didn't follow, but as I stepped into the misty street, I heard her voice behind me, calm, almost amused. "You'll come back. They always do." For 3 days, I tried to move past it. I told myself it was just a bizarre encounter, a lonely woman with too much time and a warped sense of intimacy. But something about the way she looked at me kept resurfacing in my mind. That smile, those eyes, and then the messages started again. From another account. This one used a different name, L. Varen, but the tone was unmistakable. "You look tired today. Don't stay up so late. You're still drinking honey in your coffee. Cute. The seagull on your windowsill isn't there by accident." I blocked the account. Another took its place. I stopped going to the cafe. I stopped walking near the docks. But it didn't matter. I began to feel watched. I installed blackout curtains and taped paper over the peephole. I unplugged my router. I deleted Facebook. Still, the notes kept appearing. Slipped under my door. Tucked into my mail slot. Handwritten in precise, looping cursive. One note said, "You were lonely." I just filled the shape of that. One night, I woke up to the sound of the porch boards creaking. It was 2:11 a.m. I lay frozen in bed, listening. Then came a soft tap. Not on the door. On the window. I didn't move. Another tap. Then a whisper. "Milo." I grabbed the fireplace poker from beside my bookshelf and crept toward the window. The fog outside was dense, and the glass was too dirty to see through. I waited. Breath held. Nothing. Then movement. A shadow drifting past the edge of the window frame. I lunged forward and pulled back the curtain. No one. Except, on the window in the condensation, a word had been traced with a finger. Again. I couldn't take it anymore. I booked a short-term rental 40 miles inland in a place called Elbridge Hollow. I packed a single duffel bag and left in the middle of the night without telling anyone. On my 3rd day there, I received a manila envelope. No return address. Inside were printed photos. Dozens of them. All of me. At the cafe. On my porch. Sleeping in bed. One photo showed me reading on the couch. The timestamp on the back was from the day before I met Ilera. I flipped to the last photo. It was from inside my apartment. Shot from the corner of the ceiling. There was no camera up there. At least, not one I had installed. My hands shook as I dropped the photo. Behind it was another note. "The truth is, I never left." I decided to go back to Volan's watch. I don't know why. Some broken part of me needed closure. Or maybe I needed to prove to myself that she was just a person and not some shadow stitched into my life. I went back to the cafe. It was closed. A sign on the door read, "Closed indefinitely. Staff missing." I asked around. No one remembered Ilera. They remembered a woman who wore gray and sat in the corner booth every afternoon. But no one could ever recall her face. I broke into the apartment above the bait shop. My own apartment. It was empty. Stripped bare. No sign I'd ever been there. Not even the photo frames I'd left on the kitchen counter. But in the center of the living room floor was a single item. A photo. Of me. Sitting in the cafe. Smiling at someone across the table. There was no one else in the seat across from me. Just the suggestion of a shadow. And written on the back, in that same looping script, "You'll come back. They always do." I've never